Hello everyone, the Claws here, and today guys I'm going to review a Megabloks Dragons Fire and Ice set released exclusively in Europe in 2005, and it's going to be the Fyren C Phoenix Warship. And as you can see by the design on this big box, it's going to be a bot, and to be more precise, in fact, it's going to be a recolor of the Man of War, which was a bot released first in 2003 in the Crystal Wars sub-sim. And well, so for those who have already watched my Man of War review, well, you already know the major elements of this set. So of course there will be some little differences, some little details which will change between the two bots, but still it's more or less the same. So well, let's first talk about the box. So of course you can see the bot right there, the warriors, the dragons, Fire and Ice logo right here, and the box can open like that, or the front can open, and so you can see now the bot in all its glory, as you can see, in a more like a real size scale. And of course all over the place you're going to have the different descriptions of the different gimmicks. So for example the dragons right there, crystals and different type of stuff. You can also see the different warriors, so you're going to have 10 warriors in total, if I'm not saying yes, 10 warriors in total, so 7 Fyren and 3 Ice Vorgan, but we're going to talk about that later on. Then on the back of the box we got different sets released in the Fire and Ice sub-sim and also in the Wizards sub-sim, and also a little description of the set, which is really little because it's just the heroic Fyren team pursues the Ice Vorgan Marauders, and that's all. So the rest, it's all up to your imagination. I guess it don't really want to make some complete storyline for an exclusive set. And well, yes, for those who want to know, well, maybe first I'm going to show you the instruction booklet. So the parts list right there. Then the instructions, which are, well, quite easy to understand. And finally, the back of the instruction booklet, which is the same as the back of the box, so nothing really different. And yeah, so for those who want to know this, the Fire and Ice sub-sim is quite simple. In fact, you may remember that in the Crystal Wars sub-sim, which was the sim released before, we got 3 armies: the Draga, the Norvagan, and the Vorgan. Well, in this new sub-sim, we're going to have a new army called the Fyren, which is in fact composed of the best warriors from the Norvagan and the Draga. So kind of like an hybrid army made out of the 2 armies. And then these guys are going to fight against the Ice Vorgan, so you can guess the ice cousins of the Vorgans. And well, that's really all you need to know to understand how the set and all the different armies works. And well, talking about armies, let's move on with the minifigs. So like I said, you got like 10 minifigs, and first, well, we're gonna talk about the Fyren. So like I said, because they of course are Norvagan and excuse me for this little glitch, guys. So yes, like I said, because they are from the Norvagan and the Draga armies, this means of course we're going to see the same mod we used before, but in a new color. So for example, you can see here a Draga mod, which is not new at all, but we colored in red. And so that was the first batch of Fyren, because you also got there's 2 other guys. So here you can see, for example, a Norvagan mod, but the Fyren color, and another mod. And well, for some, but so like I said, most of the mods are just 3 colors, except 2 warriors, which got a new head, and these are this one, which are in fact only exclusive Fyren warriors, and you can only tell them from the other because of the flames on their heads. So one is based on the Draga head style, and the other one is based on the Norvagan's one. And as you can see also, they're going to have different bodies, which are new bodies mods, but apart from that, it's the same as the other ones. And well, for those who want to know the dragon figures, well, in terms of articulations, it's just the head can turn, the shoulders can turn also, but not the hands, and each leg can turn. So in fact, apart from the hands, it's the same articulations as a Lego minifig, plus the fact that they got a magnet in their body, which is quite useful for some play features. And well, so like I said, most of the warriors are not new, and also the fact that all these warriors, in fact, were also released in other Fire and Ice sets. For example, this means these two ones were also released in the Fire Century set. This one was released in the Portal of Fire set. So in fact, if you don't buy this set, you will not miss any new warriors or anything like that. The only thing you will miss is the weapons and the shields, because these ones, even if they are not new molds, are new in color. Excuse me for this little glitch. So they are new in colors, as you can see, made out of gold and dark red, and they will look good also. And well, that's all you need to know for this Fyren, guys. Now let's move to the Ice Vorgan. So in fact, it's the same body, arms and legs as the traditional Vorgan, but recolored in some light green color and some turquoise color, so really some icy, some icy cold colors, which looks pretty nice. And one interesting thing is that Megabloks decided to give you the 3 exclusive Ice Vorgan's head, because kind of like the Fyren, most of the Ice Vorgan, of course, we use the Vorgan's head without any modifications. But there is still 3 new mods, and that's this one, as you can see. So it's quite cool. Plus the fact that usually these mods, which were also released in other sets, come with a new body, and here I got an old body, so they kind of make them exclusive. Also, you can notice that this guy do not have any shields, unlike the normal Ice Vorgan, but they got 2 weapons, which are once again got a new color, which are in white. And also you can notice that usually the Ice Vorgan got the Vorgan's weapon, so which looks quite like that, but this one's got some other weapons normally used by the Fyren. So it's quite weird, but well, it's also quite original. And that's all for the minifix, so now let's move on. So, excuse me, I'm going maybe to move these things right there. Oh, and I guess you may have noticed that, but the Fyrens come with 3 types of different shield molds, and they're all recolor, so that's quite cool for Megabloks. And well, now let's move for the dragons. And well, it's the same dragons that was released in the Man of War set, but in a new color. So of course it's an old dragon's mold from Crystal Wars. It's not a new one from Fire and Ice. So of course it's look quite old and well, got less articulations than the new one released in Fire and Ice. Right there. And well, let's move on and talk about the articulations first. Well, maybe first the color scheme, which as you can see is orange, yellow, and some dark red, and looks quite nice also, so pretty well made. Nice pen job as usual. Excuse me. You can also notice. Let's move to articulation. So 1 point of rotation per limbs, which is not really that good, because in fact you can't really move the dragons the way you want. Most of the time it will just look good like that. So well, that's all. The tail can be bent like that, and it will goes back in its initial position. The same can be said for the neck. The mouth can be open. Excuse me, like that, which will reveal some nice tongue detail. And well, then in terms of play features, you got a magnet in under this part, which is quite useful because, of course, like I said, each warrior got a little magnet in their body, and this means, of course, they're going to be attracted by the dragon. And then on this middle part, you're going to have 3 gimmicks. So the first one is as 4 studs to put a guy on there so he can ride the dragons, with the chain also, which is a nice detail. Then you got this little seat, which is in fact a button which can be pushed to flap the wings. And finally you got these 4 studs, which are not normal studs unlike this one, but some studs with some metallic parts. And that will be useful because I'm going to take the crystal included into this set. So of course it's the same crystal as the Man of War, but in a new color. So instead of being just transparent, here it's yellow transparent. And so I'm going to put this part right there, and the crystal will light up, as you can see. And it's going to stop by itself, of course, like that. And I think that's the last thing I wanted to show you with the dragon, because I talk about all the play features. So, well, yes, so nothing really new. We're going to talk about that, excuse me, in the sum up of this review, the conclusion. And so now let's move on to the bot itself. So like I said, it's mostly the Manowar in a new color, so of course it will be kind of the same build, but and we're gonna see how this works. For those who did not watch my Manowar review. So you can see it's a pretty big bot, by the way. So you do not pay attention on the parts right there. I will of course link them on the bot later on. So as you can see, first we're going to link this 4 big parts right there to make all the the bottom part of the bot. So excuse me if I do not use exact bot vocabulary. I just do not have the words in my head right now. So we're going to first use this big part to make the under part of the bot. We're going to link them with some bricks, and you can also notice that we're going to link these 2 parts, which will be useful to put the pillars or the mast. I don't really have the name for that. Once again, so 2 of them right there. You can notice the little steps, 3 of them, so 2 here and 1 there. And you can also notice the pillars, which will be quite useful to link also this part right there. So some big parts with a nice curved shape, and some this type of parts put on the sides. And so we'll make all the we'll put this part all around the bot, as you can see right there. You can notice that on the front we're going to use a big molded part right there, which will be a big play feature of this set. You can also notice the flames, and one of the first differences between the Manowar and the this warship is that most of the flames are big mold flames and not the little ones which were used on the Manowar. Also, there will be less flames used. And so that's for the front part and the middle part of the bot. As you can see on the rear part, we're going to use this walls part, and we're going to link 6 of them, like that, as you can see. Then we're going to put some other bricks, link another 6 parts, and finally we're going to add another 8, another place right there. You can notice the little flames here, and also this part right there, which will be useful. Well, it will be also another difference between this and the Manowar, but we're going to talk about that later on, because well, now I'm going to link some parts to complete this bot, of course, which is quite empty. So first, excuse me, I'm going to take this part right there. So just a big bricks with some parts like that. It will be linked right there. And then I'm going to take this 2 cannons. So like I said, it's a new color. So this means most of the bot is going to be dark red, black with some gold metallic color, and also gold. Just simple gold, because you can see, for example, this part is got a little metallic feeling, so it's a strange color. And so well, here's the cannons, we colored in black and gold, and it's pretty nice. Notice the little red button. Well, you just have to press it and you fire the cannon's ball. We're going to put this part like that, and yes, this because we're going to have 2 cannons. So 1 on each side. And that said, now we're going to link. We're going to work on the rear part, which is right there, because we're going to have to cover this part, and we're going to cover it with this big part right here. So you can see, we're going to have a trap directly molded into this part. So you just have to move this thing like that, and the guy will fall off, of course. You can also notice that on the bottom we're going to have this wood part, and so this means, well, this part can also be used as a raft, as a little boat, in fact. So imagine your the boat is going to sink, while you can still use this part as a little boat to continue to play. So it's a quite interesting features. Of course, it's pretty well detailed, and you can notice this part right there, which can be turned, of course. But on the other way, this part is not molded right there. You can still put it off like that. And well, you can also notice this part right there. Well, it's going to be useful to link this big crossbow part. So as you can see, a little seat right there to put a minifig, and once again some red button, and here we go. Works quite perfectly. And once again, the red and gold color scheme. So we're going to link this right there, just like that. And finally, well, you may remember that on the Manowar, excuse me, we got a third sail right there, and here it's not the case because we're going to use the prison, which was originally linked just put right there. Well, we're going to take the prison, which can of course be opened and closed, and we're going to link it right there. And that's another difference between the Manowar, excuse me, and that's another difference between the Manowar and this Fyren Warship. And so that said, now I just have to link two more parts, which will be these big ones, as you can see. So excuse me, guys, I'm going to just move up the webcam because it's really hard to show you everything. So you can see they are linked easily thanks to this part on the back, and so this means you can slide them so you can close or open the sail, which is a nice feature, I think. It's really simple, but at least it works. You can notice this part on the top, right there, and the flag, which follows the wind movement. And so that said, I'm just going to link them on this part I showed you in the beginning of this review. And then the other mast, which will just have one sail but with the Fyren emblem, which looks pretty nice and pretty well painted, excuse me. And that's all, in fact. Now the boat is finished. As you can see, oh yes, it's the crystal which will come in handy later on. So as you can see, well, it's finished, and I showed you all the play features except one, and one last one, which will use the crystals. So it will all be based about the front part of the boat, right there. So you can see we got a little magnet here and also four studs. So I'm going to link this thing on the 4 studs first. It will light up, but that's not really the play feature I'm going to show you. Then I'm going to take this weapon, which got a little magnet, as you can see, under it. I will attach it to this other magnet part, as you can see, and then I just have to push this thing down. Well, of course, you can also do not use this part and just push the button with your finger, but in the storyline, it's, well, cooler to make it with a weapon. And so I just have to push this thing, and hopefully it will not work. Well, yes, it doesn't really work, but well, it was supposed to light up like that. So I'm going to do this one more time. So it's quite easy to explain. You have just to push this thing, and then the wings rise and the mouth open, and as you can see we got some nice lights up features and works pretty well, so quite cool. And that's it. Well, that's all for this set, guys. So now let's move on to the sum up, the conclusion. I'm just going to put all the guys right there. So excuse me, of course, this thing is really big, so I can't show you everything in the same shot. It's really hard for me to show you everything. I'm still going to try, as you can see, but I move the webcam as far as possible, and I still can show you the ship in all the ship on the same shot. So, well, sorry for that. And well, so that was my review on the Fyren Sea Phoenix warship, released exclusively in Europe in 2005, if I do not say any mistakes. And well, first let's talk about the figures. We got 10 figures. It's really cool. It's a nice number of figures, and you can really have fun with them. The only problem is that none of these figures are exclusive, so well, it's not really a problem for those who do not have any Fire and Ice set, of course, but still. Well, so like I said, all the figures in there are not really new, but still cool for Megabloks to give you the two exclusive Fire and Ice new mods. So it's quite nice. And on the other way, you still got some exclusive parts, which are the recolored weapon and shields, and that's quite cool. So I know that some people do not like when there is tons of recolors of weapons in the same army, because well, it kind of breaks the sense of unity between the different part of the armies. But I kind like that personally, because for example you can say that this type of shields and weapons are only used by the sea forces, the marine forces of the Fyren. So it's quite cool. Then you got the Ice Vorgan. So like I said, it's also quite nice because you got the 3 new mod from Fire and Ice, which is quite nice, plus also some cool recolored weapon. And also the fact that they, I think it's the first time that these heads are put with these bodies, but I may be mistaken, because well, I do not have all the Fire and Ice set. No, the dragons got a nice paint job, a nice color scheme, some nice play features, but on the other hand, of course, it's quite dated because it's from Crystal Wars, and we got better dragons in the Fire and Ice sub-sim, and also the fact that the articulations are quite weak, and well, that's all. But still, some nice play features, nice paint job, but weak articulations, and well, it's quite. We have already seen this mod previously in the previous years, so it's quite getting old. But I think that's really the last one which will use this mod, by the way. And finally, the bot itself. So if I talk just about the bot itself, well, it's a big bot, which is quite cool. Got really a nice color scheme. I really like the red and dark color. It's really a nice color scheme for me. The only problem, of course, is that it's really empty. As you can see, it's quite big, but it's sadly totally empty. So kind of like many Megabloks castle sets. Well, most of them, at least. And so this means, of course, you're going to have a big bot, but there is nothing inside. There is really just less details. There is no, for example, captain rooms or stuff like that. No. There is just, well, it's a bot, so, yeah. In terms of play features, it's quite nice, because you got this very light up thing, which is really cool. Even if it's a big blocky part, at least it really looks good, and it's a very nice play feature. You got all the cannons and big crossbow. You got this part which can be moved off, well, it can be moved off the bot or on it. You can of course use the trap right there, turn this thing, and the cell right there, the prison cell, which is a nice idea and works quite nice. So, well, of course, if you're a fan of the Lego bots, which are full of which are full of details and stuff like that, you will not really be pleased with this bot. So it's quite big and all, but it's quite empty, even if it's got some nice play features. And now, if you want a comparison between this ship and the Manowar, which was first released in 2003, well, the only difference is there is 3 differences. First, the color scheme. Like I said, this one is dark red, black, gold, instead of being brown, black maybe, and yes, it used some tan colors, some beige color for the cell. So yeah, there is more color in the other ship. It's more light color. Instead, this one. Then the second difference is there is less flames, but all of them, well, most of them are in fact big flames instead of little ones. So that's to know. Also, you can notice that the parts put there are put in a different way than on the Manowar. And finally, here we got at first a third side on the Manowar, but here on this ship we got the sail directly linked right there. So that's the only differences between this set and the Manowar. So I still think the tools are quite okay. It really depends on you. In fact, it really depends on what you like, the color scheme you prefer, because except for that, there is really some little differences which are not really that important, at least in my opinion. So it's seriously a question of tests, in fact, of tests, yes, because it's all up to you. Personally, I think this Warship is quite cool. So of course, it's still got some problems here and there, but obviously it's a nice ship. If it's your first Megabloks ship, and if you already own the Manowar, well, it's not really useful to get a second type of ship, except if you want the figures, for example, if you don't have any Fyren ice set, or if you want to collect all the Dragon's bots, excuse me. But apart from that, it's not really useful to get this bot if you already have the Manowar set. And for those who just don't have any bots, it's still a quite nice, a nice set with many figures, dragons, and a pretty cool bot. Even if the bot is empty, the figures are not really new in comparison of other sets, and the dragons is quite outdated. And that said, well, that's all for this review, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them in the comment section of this video. I will, of course, happily answer them. And well, that said, hope you enjoyed, and see you later for another video review. And before that, I'm just going to show you once again the Warship in its entirety, because, well, I can't really show you, couldn't really find a nice angle to show you all the ship in one shot. So, excuse me for that, but you know Megabloks, they really like to make some big things which are quite hard to review, at least for me. So that said, hope you enjoy, and see you later for another video. Bye bye!